Okay, we're live.
Excellent, thank you. All right, welcome to this public meeting. It is May 9th, 2023. The applicants are David and Susan Foran. Being 5:15, this meeting held by the Committee of Adjustment under Section 45 of the Planning Act is now called to order. Members are to state any pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Before items are discussed, are there any declarations this evening? I see none. We need an approval and adoption of the public meeting minutes from April 11th, 2023 that were in your package. Moved by Brent. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Thank you. Applicant is increasing area and volume of existing cottage after demolition from 1,125 square feet to 1,820 square feet. There will also be an attached garage of 900 square feet, which will replace an existing garage of 297.25 square feet. For an existing lot of record situated between two existing dwellings, separated by not more than 100 meters, the minimum water setback may be reduced to the building line established by the two existing dwellings, measured to the wall of the primary building, not including decks or sun decks, provided that it shall not be less than 20 meters, 65 feet from the high water mark. This provision applies with the exception to the proposed water setback. The applicant is seeking a reduction from 100 feet to 60 feet. New construction must be no closer than 65 feet to the high water mark from the closest point of construction, including decks or sun decks. Property is located at Part Lot 20, Concession 13 in the geographic township of Sebastopol. Property is located at 2893A Foymount Road. The public meeting is a requirement of the Planning Act. In accordance with the Planning Act, notice must be given at least 20 days before the public meeting is held. Would the clerk please report on circulation of notice?
Sure, on February 27th, 2023, the notice was circulated to all property owners within 60 meters of the said land. The notice of the meeting was posted on the township's website.
Thank you. The 20-day notice have been given. I now declare the meeting properly constituted to transact its business. Would the clerk please report on any written comments received?
Sure, there's been no further written comments received other than the ones that Committee of Adjustment has looked at previously.
And again, we adjourned this meeting twice to allow for the applicant to be able to explain why the minor variance. Do any members of the public wish to speak to the minor variance? Yes, Ms. Bates.
Do you want me to speak from here or move to the table?
Wherever you're comfortable.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I don't have any intention of repeating what was submitted. I believe you all received it. I'm here to speak for the Lake Clear Property Owners Association. I just want to make it clear that the Lake Clear Property Owners Association has absolutely no opposition whatsoever to people improving their properties, adding on to it, putting in a garage within the provisions of the current Von Cher Valley Township Building Code and other regulations that are required. We've a couple of key concerns in this particular situation. We understand that some people's property does not allow them to make improvements or additions to their property due to the size or perhaps the makeup of the particular piece of property. We did receive the details that were provided by the Foran family. They were given to us by Daryl, were sent to us, and there were details in there, but it wasn't clear to us why the request for the variance to move to 60 feet versus the current building, which is at 80 feet. It in of itself is grandfathered, like an awful lot of the properties around Lake Clear are. So we just don't understand why the particular building has to go 60 feet closer. The 100-foot setback, recognizing what Madam Chair Murphy said, there are allowances for exceptions to be made. We understand that. We just don't know why it would be required in this case. Our other concern is the precedent-setting nature of this. There are other situations on the lake. People with vacant properties who were told that they have to put their new homes or cottages 100 feet back, and there was no suggestion that they should request a variance because their property allowed them to do that. So it is the precedent-setting nature of this. And just in closing, the LCPOA is just trying to protect Lake Clear from avoidable impacts from dwellings. We all know that dwellings cause impacts, but we all have to live somewhere. So when we can mitigate them, that would be great if we can mitigate them.
Thank you. And we have heard that concern, and in fact, we've read all of your comments have been read into the record, just not this evening. For obvious reasons, we adjourned because we too would like to hear from the applicant. Thank you. Do any other members of the public wish to speak? Mr. Earl, Dr. Earl, my apologies.
Not at all. For those who don't know me, my name is John Earl. I've been part of this community for 30 years now. Now that I'm retired, I split my time between here and another village called Vanity. I won't waste your time. The only reason I put my hand up is to emphasize what Judy's just said. If you were to ask me for the Coles Notes version of why there's concern, why would summarize it in one word? Everything hangs here on why this application is asking to move closer to the water. As I read the official plan, moving closer to the water only is allowed when it cannot be accomplished any other way. And we have not yet seen or heard any justification for moving it closer to the water. In the written application that has been circulated, it states that the purposes of doing this is to properly center the building. I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means. And there's a hydro line running through there. Well, I don't think that other people living around the lake who have been forced to build a greater distance are going to accept those as justifiable reasons for this variance. Perhaps the applicant has something else that they will share with us, and that's why I say it all hinges on why.
Thank you for that, Dr. Earl. Does anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir. Sorry, I'm not.
My name is John Foran. I live next to David's property. I just wanted to voice support for what he's trying to do. I don't see it as greatly different than what's been done along that shoreline on 7 or 8 other properties. And I know we can't back up much further because of the hydro line, because of mature pines. And doesn't have, one would say, looking at the dimensions by themselves, theoretically, that there's room to move back, but when you're actually on the property taking a look at it, you realize fairly quickly that you can't just push a house back into mature pines and hydro lines, and I wouldn't want him to cut down pines that have been growing there for 50 or 60 years. Surely it can't be the purpose of the organizations that are voicing concerns to see a number of pines of that age just removed, which cannot be regrown, at least not in my lifetime.
Thank you, Mr. Foran. Does anybody else wish to speak? Yes, Ms. Gillis.
Just on behalf of the Lakewood Conservancy, I'd just like to say that the further to the trees, which we all love, and I know what those trees look like, so I hear what you're saying, but the trees, the natural shoreline is the #1 protection for the lake. Also, water doesn't respect property lines, so I think we have to consider all of these kinds of applications in the context of the whole lake. Because it does, lakes don't deteriorate overnight. It's a gradual process, and every violation of these rules, every denuded shoreline contributes. So it's everyone's concern, not just people within 60 meters, but all over the lake, if we value this natural resource.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, go ahead, Philip.
Lauren.
I'm sorry, Lauren. Sorry.
Jeez, I'm
You
kind
were-
of looking.
You're hiding behind Kevin.
Just listening to what has been said, one of the things I'd like to bring also, when my wife and I built back we started in the fall of 2001, we were allowed absolutely zero exception, as far as the 100-foot restriction going forward towards the lake, even though we back up right with the hill, the mountain, if you will, right behind us. And when we asked the building inspector at the time, was there a possibility of a minor variance, he just simply said, forget it, you'll never get it. The other thing was, we have a deck in the front of our house. We're only allowed to go 7 feet, not 8, and yet lumber comes in 8, 16, you know. So, but no, it couldn't be 8, it had to be 7. So the rules were applied very strictly at that time. The other thing I like to do is refer back to Victor Castro, who, for those who don't know.
Okay, that has no bearing on this at this
Well, it
time.
does.
It does not.
Well,
This is, at this point, we adjourned these meetings
okay.
because we did want to hear from the applicant. And I think that you're reiterating basically what everybody else has said, but talking about Victor really has no basis in science for this table at this time. We're trying to make a decision, and this is the 3rd meeting, as Kevin knows, because he's been here, and all the relevant issues like the things in the official plan, zoning bylaw, appropriate development, those have all been heard. So thank you.
Thank you for your explanation.
We would like to hear from the owner, if you would, Mr. Foran. We'd like to know what is the justification for, as your fellow lake people said, why do you need to move the building closer to the lake?
So I have a short, relatively short explanation with it. I wanted to prepare it ahead, so I hit the main points and didn't miss anything.
You have the floor, sir.
So I want to thank Mayor Murphy, Buncher Valley councillors, and the staff for their patience and for providing me the opportunity to explain our application for a minor building variance. The address of this minor building variance is 2893A Flynn Road. Our main reason for requesting this building variance is to give us a safe distance from the hydropower lines that bisect the middle of our property and from the row of mature red pines running about 6 feet on both sides of the power line. The proposed building site has a setback from Lake Clear of 67 feet. So I have stakes and it's 67 feet. Now I have to admit that I put down for 16 application, and Mr. Wagner noticed it immediately and told me that that would not go. And I said, fine, because I bought 6, but it was 165. But then he said, fine, and we went ahead with it. So again, you can call it a rookie
60 was never going to happen.
Never going to
No.
happen. It was a rookie mistake, but I guess I was thinking, well, I just don't want any problems later on because there's a whole argument about high water marks, and I've heard things for 40 or 50 years about high water marks in Lake Clear. And I just want to prevent that. So that was my rookie mistake. This allows for a clearance on the west corner of my proposed residence of 53 feet from the red pine. So the one corner, which is the garage, is 53 feet to a large red pine. And then another 5 feet back is a hydro line almost in line. So that one corner and 58 feet away from the hydro line. With it on the east side, so the east corner of my property, I'm 53 feet from the hydro line with it. Given the recommendation for minimum clearance for hydro lines, our proposed site needs 20 to 25 feet of driveway for the front door. Because the more you push me back, my front door is going to be near a hydro line. Now that hydro line is a major line. It's not a little line. It's a major line as well. Given that we are not comfortable building our permanent residence, this is a permanent residence. It's not a summer residence. It's going to be a 12-month residence. We're not comfortable building our permanent residence under mature red pines and wish to build as far as possible from the hydro line for safety reasons And I point out two things. There was a bad electrocution in Manatik on Friday. And I had a 21-year-old get electrocuted in my subdivision about 20 years ago. So they do, these accidents do happen. In addition, the proposed location of our home would allow for the septic bed to be located on the the highway side of the home, far from the lake, without being forced to remove any red lines or limiting future use of the field between the hydro lines and the highway. And I will share some of the features of our property of those building that are important for the community to know. The property is on a hill 15 to 20 feet from the water. So I'm up 20 feet, 15, 20 feet from the water. There's nothing about shoreline. Okay, I'm not affecting shoreline. The property naturally slopes from the top of the hill in direction of 512. So I slope away from the lake, and it's I don't know how to define it. It's not significant, but it's not minor. It's a good slope. Yeah. The building to be constructed as a single family permanent home. The building design is a single story with full basement. It's not a lockout. So basically the 65 feet of 16-foot portion of the living room has a 6-foot jut out. The jut out will be actually 67 feet from the lake and aligned with our neighbor's residence. So on my eastern side is the Grills property. They came to the exact same committee, minor variance committee, in 2011, asking for the minor variance as well to be at 65 feet. So my neighbor has got a variance at 65 feet. With it, John owns the residence beside me on the west side. Not sure his distance, but I mean, I'm actually 14 feet behind the straight line of those two residences. The proposed,
It's about 22 meters when it's moving in.
the proposed building location makes full use of the existing driveway and the existing stairs to the lake. Once again, I want to thank you for considering.
Thank you, Mr. Foran. So I have a technical question. Even if we wanted to, we can't pass this because it says 60 feet and there's no way 60 feet is going to fly with this committee. So I don't know what the,
We can pass 65, the committee can pass what they want. Yep, the recommendation was 65.
but now he's saying 67 and I'm not even
Well,
sure.
no, that's where I'm planning to build at 67. Like, it's not like I'm asking for 65, but where my stakes are right now, it's at 67.
The committee can pass whatever they choose.
Okay, so I don't have to go back or, okay.
No, you're
Okay,
right.
because I want to hear from the rest of the committee. All right. Are there any questions, comments from the Committee of Adjustment? Brent?
For that one, well, the biggest thing is like we actually went and walked the property.
Yeah.
And stuff, so because I wanted to see, it was more in the line of sight, and you can see like the height where the hydro stands. You can see it going across, and I do agree, it is it's a lot different than other things I've seen in other municipalities where like you would have some form of leeway with the actual hydro, like on different parts of the lake, because this specific one has the main one of the main services that runs through it. So no, like when I looked at it, when I originally looked at it, I saw the property, to me, like the 67, if that's what it is, I said, I'm fine with that. And I always have been. I reviewed it, I looked at our documentation, and I said, I looked at it, line of sight, yeah, perfect. Okay, and that's how I looked at it, but I appreciate actually getting the primary source from the owner and actually like in having that, but no, I physically actually walked it. And when I looked at it, to me, I'm fine with it.
We were on your property. We apologize, but we thought firsthand, this was a couple of months ago. Maybe when Hydro's redoing the poles on 512, maybe they could do the one on your property. Too soon.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
I'm sorry, Matt, we're already
Okay.
sorry about that. Merv?
Yes, I can see what the problem is being close to the hydro lines and whatnot. And,
Okay, we're having a meeting, guys.
and I think we generally take these as the present situation to say we've opened the doors to everybody is really not true. I mean, if somebody else would come along and make this proposal, but they have the ability to move it back further, we'll make that decision.
Okay, when I looked at the property, I thought it could be moved back a little bit more. I'm just being honest with you, Mr. Foran, I'm sorry. It just appeared to me that you could have come back maybe even another 5 or 6 feet, which probably would have been a little more palatable. Tracy?
I agree with both of you that I think it's a unique situation and I see both sides of it and especially from a conservancy standpoint. But can it be moved back to your point?
Yeah.
To get a little closer to where we need to be. And I understand the challenges with the hydro line, the slope of the hill.
And
that kind
the
of stuff.
planes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
but can it be moved back more?
And that's, yeah, like I would have been more comfortable with more frontage, but
An alternative plan.
or an alternative plan, yes.
And has that been thought of, actually, an alternative plan?
I thought about that, but I really would prefer not to. I won't say not, but I prefer not to. And I'll tell you partially is those red pines are there. You know, they branch out, they're 100 to 120 feet and they're red pines. They're not white pines. So like, you know, a pretty good gust, albeit a pretty good gust of wind can bring them down. And the other thing, my roof, like if you have a, you know, when you start having red pines over roofs and that, so.
But I mean, if
yeah.
you've got a red pine and you're anywhere on that property, it's coming down on your house.
Well, some of them.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we had a tree come down on our house last winter, so I understand. But with those red pines, if something's coming down, it's coming down.
But then also there's the
Okay.
branches, there's also branches in the dirt.
I
and that.
understand that.
And then I've also thought about like if I bring in a dump truck or something like that, they have to make a turn, a sharp turn. It's gonna be tight. Like
Okay,
you're.
And those are all logistics that you have to figure out when you're building your house. For us, I'm thinking, as far as, you know, and I don't disagree with you, Merv, but I do think this particular one would be precedent setting because there is room to come back.
Yeah.
So obviously there are places like where the Monahans live. It's lake and the mountain.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go. In this case, on 512, there is. And I think that's where I'm struggling with this decision because I think that there is room to come back despite the hydro. And I'm not talking coming back the full 100. That I think you'd be in the center line of 512 at that point. But I think coming back an additional 5 feet, which would put you at 70, for me would be more palatable. But I will.
I agree. I think that it would be precedent setting, and I don't think that's something we want to do.
Yeah. And again, I mean, you know, Lake Clear, right? I mean, there are some places we would have no choice, but if somebody wants to build, they only have so much room.
Yeah.
And I think,
Between the lake and the hill.
yeah.
Well, it's
and I
many
think,
lakes,
well,
right? To get closer to the water. It's many lakes. It's not just Lake Clear.
I know, and I think that that's another problem is we're not moving dwellings closer for the sake of getting closer to the water. There's got to be a real justification for it. And I think in your case, sir, I think that you could, since we walked it, I think you could probably come back 5 feet. I would be more comfortable if we went with 70 feet. I think that's, you know, we're making some concession, but I will open it back up.
No, so like if that's what committee wants or decides, 70 feet, so it's a 65 request to a 70. It sounds like it can be doable, keeps it away, and then it just maintains precedence off that point for hydro lines and whatnot, right?
Well, and
And that's what I look at. It's like, I know if I was there, I'd probably be in a similar position because I don't want to be anywhere near the hydro line. But if you go back on the other side, it doesn't make sense to me. It makes sense where it's positioned, and I'm fine with the 5-foot setback. I think there could be room for it.
well, and if you look at the properties on the other side, they are ahead of this one. Like they're closer to the lake.
Yeah.
Their grandfather. has-
Yeah,
Oh, they're
they're
grandfathered.
seriously grandfathered, yeah,
There was days where you built wherever you wanted to.
right. Okay, Dana, you've got, so, okay. This therefore completes the public meeting process. Committee will give careful consideration to the arguments for and or against the minor variance requested for this property. Section 45(1) of the Planning Act sets out 4 tests that are required to be met. In order to be approved, the application must meet all 4 tests. Does the application conform to the general intent and purpose of the official plan, which will soon be changed anyway? Does the application conform to the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Is the application desirable for the appropriate development of the lands in question? Is the application minor? When determining the application meets the 4 tests, the Committee of Adjustment will consider all comments and reports prior to making a decision. Is the committee prepared to make a decision for or against the minor variance?
Yep.
Okay. And I apologize that Dr. Epps is not with us this afternoon. He had an emergency. The decision of the Committee of Adjustment will be circulated to applicant and anyone who has submitted comments. Notice it's hereby given that the last date for appealing this decision, the Ontario Land Tribunal, is May 29th, 2023. I declare this public meeting closed at 5:44.